Hey, good morning, everyone. This is Mr. Conway. We are going to go on to continue with learning and talking about operant conditioning today. So if you could take out your notebook and go ahead and get started on some Cornell notes. Here are all the objectives aligned with your AP tests that we're going to be studying today. Um, Basically, we're going to be talking about the difference between classical and operant conditioning. We'll discuss effects of operant conditioning with reinforcement and punishment, schedules of reinforcement, look at some graphs, and of course identify some key contributors. Cool. So let's go ahead and start with the first central question. What is operant conditioning and how does it differ from classical conditioning? Okay, so operant conditioning by definition is a type of learning in which behavior is strengthened if followed by a reinforcer or diminished if followed by a punisher. Okay, now classical conditioning is when there's an association between a stimuli, a conditioned stimulus, and the unconditioned stimulus. Now, it involves respondent behavior. This is behavior that is automatic, okay, such as the dog salivating in response um, to the tone. Okay, the dog does not really choose whether or not it wants to salivate or not. It's respondent. It's automatic. Operant conditioning, on the other hand, deals with reinforcers, which can be something that is trying to increase the behavior, or punishment, which is trying to decrease. Okay, so this produces rewards or punishment, and this is called operant behavior. Okay, so you can distinguish between classical and operant by asking, is the organism learning association between events that it does not control, which is classical conditioning, or is it learning associations between behavior and resulting events or rewards? Now, the man that you need to know today about operant conditioning is B.F. Skinner. All right, he was a college English major and an aspiring writer who ended up seeking a new direction, entered graduate school in psych. He went on to become modern behaviorism's most influential and controversial um, figure. He dismissed introspection and redefined psychology as the scientific study of observable behavior. After all, said these behaviors, science is rooted in observation. You cannot observe a sensation, a feeling, or a thought, but you can observe and record people's behavior as they respond to different situations. Okay, Skinner talked about, he built on um, this man Thorndike's principle of law and effect. Okay, this says that behaviors followed by favorable consequences. Now, consequence here can mean good or bad, it's just the result of something, become more likely and that behaviors follow unfavorable. Oops, we gotta move. Uh, Become more unlikely and that behaviors followed by unfavorable consequences become less likely, is what that says. So make sure we know what the law of effect is. Okay, now this is why he was controversial, all right? He created these things called operant chambers, otherwise known as a Skinner box. This is where he did his experiments on operant conditioning. In operant conditioning research, an operant chamber contained a bar or key that an animal can manipulate to obtain food or water reinforcer. So he put these rats in a chamber, a box called a Skinner box, and let them figure out that if they push down on this bar, food or water would come out. And then he used things like the light and the speaker to also help reinforce that behavior. He used something called shaping. Maybe you've trained a dog or some other kind of pet. You've had to use shaping. It's an operant conditioning procedure in which reinforcers guide behavior toward closer and closer approximations of the desired behavior. Okay, so if you want to get your dog to fetch you something out of the refrigerator, you don't just start by saying, hey, get me something out of the refrigerator. You have to kind of get it closer and closer and closer to what you want to try to do. So actually, the real world example, Gambian giant pouched rats have been shaped to sniff out landmines. They receive a bite of banana after successfully locating a mine during training in Mozambique. So that's a real world application of shaping. Okay, let's get to the types of reinforcers. Now, I want you to jot down this chart. This says operant conditioning. And we have, it's a little cut off here, I realize. Let's see if I can move this. Okay. Positive, I want you to copy the chart exactly like you see this. All right, so we're talking, and jot down this definition. Reinforcer in operant conditioning, it's any event that strengthens the behavior it follows. Okay, because we're going to be talking about punishment in a minute, and that's kind of the opposite. But if reinforcement or reinforcer tries to strengthen behavior that it follows. So you want to jot down the ways to increase behavior, and then the operant conditioning term, positive, negative reinforcement, the description, and examples. Now, when we're talking about learning, actually in psychology in general, if it says positive, that does not mean good. If it says negative, that does not necessarily mean bad. Positive, think of a plus sign. It means that something is being added to the situation. Think of negative like a negative sign, a minus sign. That means that something is being removed from the situation. It does not mean good or bad. So positive reinforcement is reinforcement that is trying to increase a certain behavior. Let's say your parents want you to get good grades in school. So they want to increase your behavior of getting good grades. So if they use positive reinforcement, they're going to add a desirable stimulus. They might give you $100 for each A that you get. Okay, they are adding a desirable stimulus to try to increase your behavior. Negative reinforcement would be removing an aversive stimulus, fastening a seatbelt to turn off beeping. It might be if you get a 4.0 this semester, we will take your younger sibling out of your room and give you your own room. We'll remove your sibling. Okay, we will remove your curfew. Taking away something bad, okay? There are different types of reinforcers. A primary reinforcer is something that innately or naturally reinforces stimuli, such as the one that satisfies a biological need. So the dog experiment with Pavlov, the food would be a primary reinforcer. Secondary reinforcer is a stimulus that gains its reinforcing power through its association with a primary reinforcer. So this is also going to be known as a conditioned reinforcer. So where it says also known as, it should say conditioned reinforcer. So, for example, primary reinforcer would be getting food when hungry, or to have having a painful headache go away when you eat. So the secondary reinforcer would be a learned association. So if a rat inside a Skinner box learns that a light reliably signals that food is coming, the rat will work to turn on the light. Okay, the light has become a conditioned reinforcer or a secondary reinforcer. Now, the time that these reinforcers come are going to be big. We're going to be talking about that in a second. So immediate and delayed reinforcers. So immediate reinforcer would be something that you see the results of it right now. Okay, watching TV instead of studying. You're satisfying that immediate need to be entertained. Servers getting paid immediately after working. You work and you get your stimulus to increase the behavior. You do a good job, you get cash money in your pocket immediately. All right, then we have delayed reinforcers. Studying now to do well on next week's test. You might not necessarily see that reward right away, but you know that it's coming. Staying in school to go to college so you'll have a good job. Working and receiving a paycheck at a future date. All right. Most of us, teachers, we get paid once a month. So I got to work 30-something days, 30, 31 days before I get paid for all the work I do. That is a huge delayed reinforcer. So based on this cartoon, Skinner's is kind of poking fun at it. Skinner's rats did not respond well to delayed reinforcement, but humans, we do. How do different reinforcement schedules affect behavior? Okay, so this is going to be one of the last things we're going to talk about today, and that's the schedules. So continuous reinforcement, reinforcing the desired response every time it occurs. Okay, now I know vending machines don't always, sometimes they get stuck, but for the most part, when they're operating well, a vending machine is an example of continuous reinforcement. All right, you put your money in, you get your food every time. It's not going to say, oh, sorry, no, you don't get it this time. Maybe try 5 more. I know that does kind of happen, but theoretically, you're supposed to get it every single time. The other kind is going to be partial or intermittent reinforcement, reinforcing a response only part of the time. This results in slower acquisition of a response, but much greater resistance to extinction. Okay, that's why people can, and a slot machine is an example of this. That's why people can sit there and shove quarters in those things over and over and over again. Okay, because they think that they might win, and every now and then it does spit some money out. These things are programmed to let you win every now and then, but probably to never ever win big. So that's why the resistance to extinction is so high, because it does produce some sort of results. Okay. Now, this is probably going to be one of the trickiest things to learn, but it's really important that we jot this chart down. So again, just like the reinforcement, I'd like you to write down this chart. So we have schedules of reinforcement, we have fixed, and we have variable. Fixed, just like it sounds, is going to be, it's not going to change. It's going to be the same amount every time. Variable is going to be an unpredictable number. So now we've got on this side of the chart ratio and interval. Ratio, think of a number. Think of ratios, you deal with math. So it's going to be some sort of a number. Interval is going to be some sort of time. So if we put those together, a fixed ratio will be a fixed number. So if you buy 10 coffees, you get the 11th one free. That's fixed. You know that going in, and it's a different number. Okay? And fixed interval will be every so often. Reinforcement for behavior after a fixed time. So every Tuesday you get discount prices. Okay, fixed interval. Now, variable ratio will be an unpredictable number. Reinforcement after a random number of behaviors. So this is going to be like a slot machine, variable ratio. And then variable interval will be unpredictably often. So reinforcement for behavior after a random amount of time. So like when your email's coming in, or you checking for email, you have no idea when those things are coming in, okay? And then I lied. The very last thing we're talking about is punishment. So how does punishment affect behavior? All you need to do is know that punishment is an event that decreases the behavior that it follows. So I want you to jot this chart down as well. So we know that reinforcement tries to increase behavior. Punishment does the opposite, and it tries to decrease. Types of punishment we have. Positive punishment. Remember, positive does not mean good. It just means that we're adding something. So in positive punishment, you are adding a bad stimulus. Okay, so if a child does something wrong in school or at home and the parents choose to use positive punishment, they're going to be adding something bad, such as spanking. Parking and speeding tickets. If you break the law, the police want to try to decrease your behavior of speeding, so they add a speeding ticket. Negative punishment is when you take away something good. So let's say you were getting bad grades in school. Your parents want to decrease that behavior, so they're going to take away something good. They are going to take away your cell phone. That's negative punishment. If you get too many reckless driving tickets or a DWI, you will have your driver's license taken away. That is negative punishment. They're taking away something good. All right, so it's key that you know the difference between reinforcement and punishment, but that's basically operant conditioning. So make sure you got your notes down and you're completing everything on the module, and I'll see you guys in class later.